Today is a very special episode because we are celebrating the 1 year anniversary of the podcast. Yay! So happy birthday, creator to leader. Now, I want to give you a quick heads up. Today's episode is going to get a little bit personal just for a minute because at the end of the day, this episode really is for you and it is the core of a lot of what I believe and the reason why I started this podcast. But that journey, in order for me to share that, I have to talk about my faith. I am a Christian. I believe in Jesus. But this is not an episode only for people who share my beliefs. This is an episode for listeners, old and new, wanting to stay in the journey of showing up, creating content, because your purpose, your passion, the thing that drives you is bigger than the fears and the doubts and the obstacles. And maybe you're feeling stuck. Maybe even though you've had success, you've accomplished amazing things, maybe you feel like in some areas you're not making the progress you want in your business, in your brand, and you're kind of wondering if something's wrong, right? Or even if you're meant for this, if this next level of your business is even for you. But what if the problem isn't about needing a big breakthrough? What if it's about changing how we think about the journey itself? And I know the risk of sounding like a cliche is big, but bear with me. Because my hope is that by sharing what I've learned, you'll feel more equipped and inspired to step into your own leadership role, even when things don't look like a straight path. Whether you consider yourself a person of faith or not, I believe that there are takeaways here, and I pray that this message reaches you at the right time so you can step forward in your journey. If you're new around here, my name is Eugenia, but you can call me E. Yes, my name is in Spanish. And let me tell you, my mom didn't think my name through. That's why E works just fine. I rebranded. It's okay. I'm the creator of this podcast. Nice to meet you. How you been? I had a little Taylor Swift moment over here. I don't know why I'm making this intro weird. Let's keep it going. Let's keep it going. This is really a very special episode to mark the 1 year anniversary of Creator to Leader. And also, fair warning, I'm Latina, as I said, which means that today is coming with a side of tough love. And I hope that's cool with you, because some people say that Latinos are intense, but really, I just think that we are passionate. And something I'm really passionate about is movies. I really just love stories in general. And I was always so obsessed with these stories where in 48 hours, the main characters would meet in the most romantic ways and they would fall in love, have a fight because of a misunderstanding, then have a change in revelation, get back together and live happily ever after. All of that after 120 minutes of the movie. Like, give me those movies all day, every day. But that created an expectation for speed in so many areas of my life. I'm talking the type of expectation where I would go to the gym for a week and then get frustrated because I couldn't see my six-pack by Sunday. And this was especially true with my purpose. Like this big topic of the purpose. Why am I here on this earth? And don't worry, we're not getting that philosophical here on this episode, but I'm telling you the truth. I've been super driven to find my thing and feel like I'm making a difference since I was 12. I'm not kidding. I really wanted to have this big moment, like this big revelation, and then have all the things line up together and have the craziest rag to riches story in less than 6 months. Like that was my expectation. But life doesn't work like that. Our purpose, our calling, the thing that we are put on this earth to do, our assignment, doesn't develop like that. And maybe this has been for you too, right? Because sometimes as we're building our brands, our business, building our mission, really, like the thing that we're really passionate about, that process of building doesn't look like a straight path. And in those times, it's really easy to get discouraged because things take too long, or we make a decision thinking that it was God's plan, but things just don't work out. And I gotta be honest, we can even start questioning this purpose, right? Because, and I hear it in so many friends, not only myself, so many friends. Was it only me? Was it my mind? The mind, let me tell you, it gets loud. The thing is that your calling is too important to get lost in the noise. So today, I want to give you my business anchor verse. Don't worry, we're not going to go into full Bible study, even though if we were, it would be a dope Bible study. But I want to share the anchor of my business, of what I've done in the public way, because it is this Bible verse that really continues to show me different sides of life and God and this huge word that we call purpose. So God gave me this scripture back in 2020, and today I want to share it with you. And this is 2 Corinthians 1:4. And it says, God comforts us in all our troubles so that we can comfort others. When they are troubled, we will be able to give them the same comfort God has given us. That thing you went through, the trauma you experienced, the random class you took all the way back in college, God carried you through all of that, the heartbreak, the disappointment, the seasons of waiting, all of that. God carried you through all of that so that you could be then of service to others. Comfort others through the same thing. Maybe it doesn't have to be quite literal, but part of your past, of your history, of your experiences, the encouragement you received, the lessons you learned, they are there to now be passed on to the next person already waiting for you. And please hear me out here. I'm getting super close to the microphone for dramatic purposes. Your calling is too important. There are people who are literally waiting for you to step out in a leadership role, to stop looking at social media like a chore, like, oh, this thing I have to do. I have to create content. I hate it. And instead, stepping into the leadership role and saying, how can I serve others through this platform that I've been given for free, basically? So in order to fulfill your calling, right, in order to reach that purpose and have an impact, even when things get hard, when you get discouraged, when the plan doesn't work out, you need to have the mindset of a leader. And this is a stage mindset, really. Even though we're not talking to stage performers, it is a stage mindset because, I have a background in acting. It's one of my biggest passions. So I see so many similarities between the stage and your social media in the sense that they require this mindset of a leader. And I told you earlier that I'm your Latina sister and I was going to give you some tough love. Because here's the thing, developing this mindset is going to challenge you. Like 100%, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. This is not a rom-com where the whole plot happens in 120 minutes, right? Where the protagonist only cries for 5 minutes to some type of indie rock music and Chad Michael Murray in the background. Or maybe that's me. That's what happens when I think of rom-com. This is going to be a journey. But my question is your purpose worth it? Is this purpose you have, that you know, that you feel it in your heart, is it worth the challenge? And if you're listening to this podcast, I think that we have that in common. I think that the answer is yes. That's why I'm reminding you today of the anchor verse, 2 Corinthians 1:4. God comforts you in all of your troubles so that you can then comfort others. when they are troubled, you will be able to give them the same comfort God has given you. And this is people that they need to hear from you. You are uniquely prepared and equipped. You have all the unique ingredients for a specific group of people. Isn't that incredibly encouraging? I fully, wholeheartedly believe that we were created with purpose for this earth. Like nothing is just a random coincidence. Again, I don't want to get too philosophical. What's the meaning of life? But I believe, and not just because I blindly believe that, it's because of my faith, but also because of my experience and the people that I've worked with, huge entrepreneurs, and the way I see them experiencing the fullness of life. That happens when you share the comfort you've received with others. And I'm not coming here on my high horse telling you that you have to toughen up. No. I had to develop this mindset of a leader after so many years of insecurities and doubts and self-sabotage. I have such a bad track record of starting things and then leaving them halfway through when they got hard, which is why this birthday for the podcast is so important to me. And I'm going to tell you a story in a minute, and you're going to see the full picture. So I told you that God gave me my anchor verse in 2020. Back at the time, He gave me that anchor verse, and He gave me the vision for this podcast to encourage women in this intersection of femininity and power. Because back at the time, the media was filled with messages about how a woman needed to be tough and acting quote unquote like a man in order to be a leader, and every empowerment message was around stop behaving like a girl, basically. And I wanted to explore what leadership looked like from a place of femininity. And when I first launched, people were very confused. Even my friends, they didn't get it. They thought that I was talking either about some type of metaphysical concept by femininity, or that I was talking about me wanting to tell people to wear dresses. So I was fascinated by that topic. So, and I had my anchor verse. I had my confirmation that that's what God wanted me to do. I launched my podcast. Oh, I quit my job. I launched my podcast, and I was like, girl, this is going to be my testimony. This podcast is going to be blowing up in 3 months, and it's going to be great. No one listened. It was so frustrating. I would spend hours preparing, editing, and no one would listen. I mean, what I thought it was no one. I'm going to be honest. I had probably 10, 15 downloads per episode. And that's not no one. Those are, imagine if you had 10 to 15 people sitting, listening to you week after week. That is amazing. That is incredible. But at the time, to me, I felt that it wasn't working. And I kept comparing myself with all the other podcasts. So I would try everyone else's strategy, everyone else's tactics that I would see, some here, some there. And eventually, I lost sight of what I was doing. I lost momentum. I became so discouraged, and I just stopped doing the podcast. And I didn't even say goodbye. I still have, this is so bad, but I still have 3 interviews that I never released. Not because of the guests were not great, but because I was not in that place anymore. And it really sucked, because I really thought that was going to be my rag to riches story. I had my verse. I had my confirmation. And then I thought, well, maybe I'm not meant to be in front of the microphone. Maybe I'm more of a behind the scenes type of person. So I started exploring what my business could look like. Started as a virtual assistant, then a project manager, a podcast manager, podcast producer. I became really freaking great at producing podcasts and helping my clients grow their podcasts. And I said, hey, great. I'm not meant to be the person speaking on the microphone. I'm just meant to help other people grow their shows. That's great. Awesome, right? And I even went back to corporate for a little bit while I still had my business, because I was so afraid of going full in on my business. I was afraid because I had already what I thought was confused God's word before. So I was really afraid that I would do it again by going full in on my business. So I kept this job as a safety blanket. But fast forward to 2023, that verse, 2 Corinthians 1:4, never left my mind, and God challenged me again to speak to others about the comfort I had received through Him to encourage them and equip them to take the proverbial stage with their personal brands in the area of marketing, content creation, social media, building their personal brand, creating influence, creating impact. The name that God gave me for this podcast, even though He gave it to my husband, and that's such an amazing story, was Creator to Leader. And that's the podcast you're listening to today. And I started wondering, what if we change our relationship with being visible online, which is ultimately the whole purpose of posting on social media, having a podcast, whatever it is you choose to do? What if we saw being visible online as a way to further our purpose as leaders and own the word leaders? Because let me tell you, that word can get uncomfortable. I completely understand. Being a creator, it is really a privilege. And I have no problem with content creators. I think they are amazing. I think sometimes they're misunderstood. I love them. I really do. But when you take that verse of 2 Corinthians 1:4 to your heart and you start applying it through your content, you go from being a creator to being a leader. And I want to tell you, I want to repeat that verse to you because I truly believe, and as I'm recording this, I truly believe it in my heart. You need to hear it today. You need to hear it again. God comforts us in all of our troubles so that we can comfort others. When they are troubled, we will be able to give them the same comfort God has given us. What type of leader? A leader who sees a different way. A leader who has empathy, of course, for what the other person is going through, but a leader that loves that person too much to let them stay in the same place. So to finish this story, I decided to believe God, even though it was so scary. I really renewed my mind with this verse. I really embraced this leadership mindset because I knew that something had to change. And I launched my podcast. And it ranked number 37 on Apple Podcasts. It reached 30 countries within the first month. It landed at the top 3% of all podcasts globally in the first 3 months. Those things were impossible on my own strength. But my message that I shared, I was so connected to it, and I still are. But at the time, it was such a fresh vision, and I was not depending on the number of downloads to feel like it was worth it. Sure, I really wanted to rank. I am a competitive person, and I really wanted to rank. But now I was not thinking, only 10 people, that's nothing. I was going to be thankful for each and every single person giving me their time and listening to this message. And oh boy, was it worth it? Was it worth it? Those results were beyond incredible. I knew that something had changed. I wasn't even chasing the overnight success, yet somehow I got incredibly, quote unquote, fast results. And this happened after I identified the patterns of thought that were keeping me away from sharing the fullness of what God had taught me. So this is the mindset of a leader. This is the stage mindset. And there are 3 things, really critical things, that we need to leave behind if we want to embrace this mindset. Number 1, we need to let go of perfectionism. Because getting visible and embracing your leadership, as I said, is like taking the stage. And something that I learned about the stage is that every performance and every stage is only preparing you for the next one. The minute the show starts, there's nothing you can do. You already rehearsed what you had to rehearse. You already prepared as much as you could prepare. The cards are already out. You just have to enjoy it. And then you have the next show to worry about. That's the stage rhythm. So taking the stage really is a journey. You don't need to have it all figured out. You can always tweak, you can always change, you can always adjust. Remember, at the end of the day, it is about helping others with the help you've received from God. And I know that even if you don't share my beliefs, you can recall a moment where you said, okay, this definitely didn't come from my own strength. There's no way I could have done this on my own strength. Number 2, once you take the stage, you are not a spectator anymore. Getting visible and embracing your leadership is like taking the stage. And this is the same difference between having a consumer mentality and a creator mentality. Because when you are a spectator, you are a consumer, right? You are there to be entertained. You scroll social media because you want to be supported, you want to be educated, you want to be inspired, you want to be entertained. You are a little bit more passive. And I have nothing against that. There are moments to be consumers. There are moments to be spectators. When you are a spectator, you are reacting to the narrative that someone else is creating, right? You are at your seat, someone else is creating a narrative, and you are reacting to it. You are comfortable, really, as a spectator. You don't care, really, what's happening behind the scenes, because at the end of the day, that's not your problem. Like, you paid to have a good time. But when you take the stage, you become a leader. You are not there looking to be entertained, looking to be fed ideas and thoughts. Let me see what everyone's thinking. Let me see what my industry is saying. Let me see No. You are there to create new ideas and content because you have a vision that you want to convey through social media. That is the change in relationship. And that's why so many people say, oh, I hate social media. It's because they think they are looking at social media from a place of a consumer. I hate playing this game. I hate the things I have to do to play this game. I'm not an influencer. I don't like doing these things, but it's because you are consuming and you think that you have to behave the same way, and not really. You're a leader. You have to set your own path. Of course, there are trends, there are best practices. All of those things are true, but they are ways to support your vision and your message, not the other way around. Your message does not depend on a trend, on an algorithm, or on best practices. And that is a really important, but sometimes hard switch to make. And then finally, the third thing that you need to leave behind is that once you take the stage, your relationship with your audience is going to change. Because getting visible and embracing your leadership, as I said again, is like taking the stage. When you take the stage, you are there to serve. You're not there to be served. And that's a big change in the relationship because the audience is paying, right? Even if it's their time, they're paying to see you perform. Don't put on them their responsibility to give you validation. Remember when you were a spectator, previous point? You were like, okay, give me ideas, give me education, give me information, entertain me. You were there to be fed. Now, the relationship, I'm sorry, but it's going to change. And this part is hard because we want things to stay the same. We want to have influence, and not from a place of, oh, I'm the best, but from a place of, wow, I could help so many people with this knowledge, with this information. So you want to have an impact. You want to use your voice. You want to have your ideas matter. So you need to change the relationship. Now you are there for them. Now you are not on social to be entertained, but you are there to listen. You are going to have now to get more and more confident in your identity and who you are in God. And trust me, because I've learned this in different stages, if you are not confident or secure in who you are, and you jump on that stage waiting for the applause to validate you, you're never going to be satiated. It's never going to be enough. You need to understand who you are, and I really recommend that you find your identity in God. Because your audience cannot be God, and we were made to worship something. So if you don't have that identity secure, you're going to worship your audience. You're going to do anything and everything for the likes, for the saves, for the downloads. That's going to be your own or your only measure of validity. And take it from me, all of these things, they were present for my first podcast. As you embrace now this role as a leader, as we talked about, your purpose is too important not to, you're not posting for likes anymore. You are there to understand what your audience is saying, what's happening, but you are not there to be validated. You are not there to play the algorithm game anymore. So before I leave, I want to make an invitation. Even when it doesn't look like a straight path, even when things take a little longer than expected, start changing your mindset to start behaving like the leader you are. In whatever place God has positioned you right now, ask yourself, is my purpose worth it? Decide to become a leader right now. This is an invitation that will change your life, even when the path doesn't look straight. And when it gets hard, because it will, and when you think about quitting, because you will, remember this. You are meant to change someone else's life. This is not wishful thinking. Literally, the verse that we've read 3 times, that's what the Bible says. If you've suffered, you are meant to help others. Like, you've suffered? Okay, cool. You're meant to help others. So I have a feeling that everyone here fits the criteria. If you're listening to this podcast, it's not a matter of if, but when you're going to change someone else's life. I 100% believe that. Not on your own strength, not because you're so great, but because you have received this life-changing encouragement from God in a season of need. And now you have unique knowledge and background and experience, and all of these ingredients are mixed together in the unique way that you have to see the world. When times get hard, in order to fulfill your calling and have the impact God has called you to have, you're going to adopt the mindset of a leader. Even when it doesn't look like a straight path, we need to start changing our mindset to start behaving like leaders in the place where God has positioned you right now. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for listening. I believe in you. I am rooting for you. And I can't wait for the next year of this podcast. Un beso. I hope you loved this episode. If you connected with the podcast in some way, please rate it and review it on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. That is the #1 way you can support the show. And because sharing is caring, share it with a fellow entrepreneur wanting to become a leader, not just a creator. I am so grateful for you. I'd love to hear from you. Shoot me a DM over to @eugenia.woo. That's @EUGENIA.WOO. And if you only send me a microphone emoji, I will know that you stayed till the end. Thank you for listening. See you soon.